The jet is already running when you reach the flight line. You can feel the vibration in your chest before you're even close. The crew chief hands you your helmet without making eye contact. That's not disrespect. That's routine. You're not special here. Not yet. You're just another body in a flight suit, trying not to wash out before the week is over. You strap in. You run the checklist. You try to remember everything at once, and you can't. Nobody can. That's the point. This is where it starts. Level 1, student. You are nobody's asset yet. You are a liability. The Air Force has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars just getting you to this point, and you haven't done a single thing useful. You know this. Your instructor knows this. The guy who's been flying F-16s for 12 years knows this without even looking at you. Undergraduate Pilot Training, UPT. You've been here 6 months, and it already feels like 6 years. You wake up at 0430. You brief for an hour before a flight that lasts 90 minutes. You debrief for 2 hours after. The math doesn't make sense until you understand that the flying is the easy part. The understanding is the job. You fly the T-6 Texan II, a propeller plane. You are embarrassed by this until the first time it tries to kill you in a spin, and you realize it has more respect for physics than it does for your confidence. Your IP, your instructor pilot, sits behind you. He doesn't say much. When he does speak, it's one sentence. You're behind the aircraft. That means you're reacting instead of thinking ahead. That means you're already dead in a combat scenario. That means try again. You fly the same patterns over and over. Traffic pattern, instrument approach, aerobatics, emergency procedures. You practice engine failures at altitude until simulated death becomes boring. The students who wash out aren't the ones without talent. They're the ones who can't absorb failure fast enough. You learn to fail, reset, and brief the next sortie without carrying the last one into the cockpit. Emotion is drag. You cut it. At the end of UPT, you get your wings. A general pins them to your chest. Your family takes photos. You feel something enormous. By Monday morning, you're already the lowest rank in your next assignment. The wings don't mean what you thought they meant. They mean you're ready to start. Level 2, wingman. Your first operational squadron. You walk through the door and the wall hits you immediately. Patches everywhere, call signs, a culture with rules no one wrote down that everyone already knows. You are the FNG, the new guy. You don't get a call sign yet. You get called by your last name until the squadron decides you've earned ridicule, and the call sign comes from that. You fly the F-16, or the F-15, or the FA-18. Doesn't matter. What matters is you are a wingman. Your job is to not embarrass your flight lead. Your job is to keep sight, call your fuel state, and stay in position. That's it. Nothing heroic, nothing complex. Stay in position and don't create problems. Your flight lead is a captain with 1,200 hours and a quiet authority that comes from having been embarrassed himself and surviving it. He doesn't explain much. He demonstrates. You watch everything. You fly your first supersonic sortie and feel the acceleration press you into the seat at 9 Gs. Your vision tunnels. Your suit inflates against your legs and stomach. You strain and breathe in short cycles the way they taught you. You don't gray out. You land and debrief and act like it was routine. It wasn't routine, but you act like it was, because that's what they do here. You start to understand the ecosystem. Every pilot in this squadron has a number, not a rank number, an invisible number. Hours, qualifications, mission sets, night vision currency, air to air, air to ground. You are near the bottom. You know it. You accept it. You fly 150 hours in your first year. You make small errors. You debrief them honestly because the culture demands it. Hiding a mistake is worse than making one. The debrief room is where careers are built and broken, and everyone knows it. You stop thinking about looking cool. You start thinking about being precise. Those are different things entirely. Level 3, 2-ship lead. You've been in the squadron 2 years. Someone decides you're ready to lead a 2-ship. That means another pilot flies on your wing. Another person's life, aircraft, and performance is now partly your responsibility.
You feel the weight of it the first time you taxi out with your wingman behind you. You brief the mission with more detail than you used to. You think about contingencies. What if comms fail? What if he loses the target? What if weather degrades below minimums? You have answers for all of it before you ever leave the ground. The missions get more complex. You fly against aggressor squadrons, pilots trained to simulate enemy tactics, flying dissimilar aircraft, hunting you the way an adversary would. You learn that being good at flying the jet is not the same as being good at fighting with the jet. Fighting requires instinct layered on top of mechanics. You have the mechanics. The instinct takes longer. You lose your first simulated engagement, and the debrief is thorough and surgical. The aggressor pilot walks you through the geometry of why you died. There's no emotion in his voice. It's math. You write it down. You go home and diagram it on paper. You sleep loose over it. You fly the engagement again 3 weeks later and win. You don't celebrate. You debrief it like you lost, because there's always something to fix. That's the mindset now. It lives in you, without effort. Your call sign is established by this point. The story behind it is stupid. You don't explain it to people outside the squadron. They wouldn't understand, and that's fine. The call sign is an inside structure, a marker. You belong to something that has its own language. You start to realize that belonging to it has cost you things outside it. Your schedule is not your own. Your phone can go off at any hour. Deployments are announced with 6 weeks' notice. Relationships absorb this, or they don't. Some don't. You file that away and keep moving. The mission is the mission.
Level 4. Flight Lead. Fully mission qualified. 4-ship lead. Your signature on the briefing card carries weight now. You've deployed once, maybe twice. You've flown in real airspace where real threats existed. You haven't fired a weapon in combat yet. Or maybe you have. Either way, you felt the difference between training and operations. The air feels different when the rules of engagement are real. The radio calls are shorter. The decisions are faster. You are responsible for 4 aircraft and 4 pilots every time you step to the jets. You manage fuel, timing, threat reaction, communication, and execution simultaneously. The cognitive load is invisible from the outside. From the inside, it feels like running 4 separate conversations at once while solving a geometry problem at 500 knots. You're good at it. That's the unsettling part. You've become good at something that most people on Earth will never understand. There's a distance that creates. You sit at a dinner with civilians and they ask what it's like to fly a fighter jet, and you smile and give them the version that fits over appetizers. You don't explain the debrief culture. You don't explain the math of a neutral engagement going offensive. You don't explain what it costs to be this prepared for something you hope you never fully have to use. You've earned your first air medal, maybe, or a commendation. The paperwork is less interesting than the missions. The missions are what you remember. You start mentoring the new guys. You hear yourself saying things your first flight lead said to you. You sound like him. You don't know when that happened. The squadron is a machine. You are now one of its functional parts. Level 5. Weapons Officer. The patch is different now. You survived weapons school, 6 months at Nellis Air Force Base, the most demanding academic and flying curriculum in the United States military. The washout rate is real. The pilots who don't make it aren't weak. They're just not this. You are now a patch wearer. In the fighter pilot world, this is a specific, recognized status. It means you were selected, you survived, and you came out the other side capable of designing and leading the most complex combat missions the Air Force can generate. Your squadron uses you differently now. You sit in planning cells that lower-ranked pilots don't enter. You build the packages. You write the tactics.
When the wing is preparing for a large force exercise, 50 aircraft, multiple threats, electronic warfare, suppression of enemy air defenses, you are the one who builds the architecture of how it works. You can look at a tactical problem the way a chess player looks at a board, except the pieces move at Mach 1.5, and the consequences of wrong decisions are written in aluminum. The weight is different at this level. You're not just responsible for your ship. You're responsible for the intellectual framework that keeps dozens of pilots alive and effective. When something goes wrong on a mission you designed, you feel it differently than a simple execution error. You built the house. If the roof fails, that's yours. You sleep less, not from fear, from analysis. You replay decision trees at 2 a.m. You find the gap in the plan you missed. You fix it in your head. You fix it in the brief in the morning. Nobody outside the community knows what a weapons officer does. That's fine. You stopped needing external validation somewhere around your 800th flight hour. Level 6. Squadron Commander. You are 38 years old. You have 2,000 hours, maybe 2,400. The number almost doesn't matter anymore because you've crossed the threshold where raw experience is assumed. What matters now is judgment. You command a fighter squadron, 24 aircraft, 30 pilots, 200 maintenance personnel. The flying is still part of the job, but it is no longer the whole job. You spend your mornings in meetings about budget lines, and your afternoons reviewing safety reports, and your evenings on the flight line watching your pilots land. You are responsible for every sortie that leaves this base. Every pilot who goes wheels up does so under your command authority. When something goes wrong, a bird strike, a hydraulic emergency, a spatial disorientation incident, your phone rings first. You've had the call, more than once. You've stood in front of families. You've written letters. You've flown the missing man formation. This is the level where the mission becomes personal in a way it wasn't before. Before, you were executing. Now you are responsible for the people executing. That difference hollows something out. You feel it in moments when the flight line is quiet and you're watching a young lieutenant pre-flight his jet and you know exactly what he doesn't know yet. You don't tell him. He has to learn it the way you did. Your pilots are loyal to you because you've flown with them. You've debriefed them honestly. You've defended them when the bureaucracy tried to grind them down. You've also held them accountable in ways that cost you both. That's what command is. It's a transaction with no clean edges. You are building something here, a culture, a standard. You won't see all of what it produces. Some of it will outlive your tenure by decades. You fly when you can. Sometimes, at dusk, when the schedule allows, you take a single ship to altitude and you just fly. No mission, no debrief requirement, just the jet, the sky, and a clarity that doesn't exist at sea level. Those are the moments you don't talk about.
Level 7. Wing Commander. The base is yours. You have a headquarters building with your name on a parking space outside it. You have a staff of colonels. You have 72 aircraft and the infrastructure to sustain them. You interface with combatant commanders, with defense contractors, with senators who sit on appropriations committees and want to understand what you actually need versus what the budget allows. You fly once a week if you're lucky. You stay current because currency is credibility. The day you stop flying is the day the pilots start seeing you as a bureaucrat in a flight suit. You refuse to let that happen. So you schedule the sorties yourself. You fly with the squadrons. You get in the debrief room and take feedback from a 26-year-old captain and you write it down. That's the move. That's the thing that separates the wing commanders who keep the trust of their pilots from the ones who lose it slowly and don't notice until it's gone. The decisions at this level have long shadows. You approve training programs that will shape pilots who haven't been assigned to your wing yet. You make readiness calls that affect deployment rosters.
You sign off on weapons certifications that determine who flies combat and who doesn't. Everything is downstream of a decision you made. The political dimension is heavier here. The Air Force is not only a military organization, it is also a bureaucracy with tribal structures, career patrons, and invisible networks of influence. You've learned to navigate them the way you learned to navigate threat envelopes, with awareness, with discipline, with controlled exposure. You still believe in the mission. That belief is load-bearing. The day it becomes performance instead of conviction is the day you should take off the uniform. You haven't reached that day, but you've met men who have, and they don't always know it when it happens.
Level 8. The General. 1 star, 2 stars, 3, 4. At this altitude, the jet is a symbol. You still fly, quarterly maybe, a show flight sometimes, a demonstration of continuity. The aircraft responds to your inputs the way it always has. Physics doesn't adjust for rank. The jet doesn't care about the stars on your shoulders. That's the last honest relationship you have with something that can't be managed. Everything else is managed. You sit on committees that determine the future shape of American air power. You testify before Congress. You advise the Secretary of Defense on capability gaps and acquisition timelines. The words you choose in a classified briefing can redirect billions of dollars and years of industrial effort. You are no longer a pilot who became a general. You are a strategic asset with a pilot's credential. The loneliness at this level is specific. You are surrounded at all times. Aides, staff officers, security personnel, protocol teams, public affairs advisors. The circle never empties. But the number of people who speak to you without a filter, without performing, without positioning, is near zero. Maybe 1 or 2. A spouse who has seen every version of you. A peer you've known since UPT who calls you by your call sign instead of your title. Those calls are the ones you take regardless of what's on the calendar. You have made decisions that cost lives, not through negligence, through the brutal arithmetic of operations. You approved mission parameters knowing the risk. The mission succeeded. The math was correct. The grief is still yours. You carry it without showing it, because showing it would destabilize everyone below you who needs you to be stable. That's the transaction at level 8. You absorb. You absorb the grief, the weight, the ambiguity, the impossible choices, and you convert them into calm, into direction, into strategy. The institution needs that from you, so you give it. You sit alone in your office at 0600 before the day's machinery starts, and you think about the T-6 Texan, the spin training, the instructor who barely spoke, the way the aircraft tried to kill you, and you refused. You've been refusing ever since. That's the whole story, really. One long refusal. Somewhere on a flight line in Oklahoma or Texas or Nevada, a student pilot is doing his pre-flight. His hands are slightly unsteady. His checklist is perfectly memorized. His confidence is a performance, and his fear is real. But the fear is useful, so he keeps it. He thinks he knows what this is going to be. He thinks he understands the shape of the thing he's walking into. He doesn't, but he will. They always do.